I never use the gavel. I'm just joking. I don't really, I'm just trying to bring it in. Get her attention. Okay, so I'm just going to throw it over to Jonathan to just sort of explain what happened here and why it's not going to happen again or what the troubleshoot was, just so people can understand. So,
Hold on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we actually had a power fluctuation in the back unit where actually disrupted the audio where we could hear everything inside the room, but unfortunately the live stream wasn't able to hear a thing as well as the remote participants. So we now have a plan of action going forward to make sure it doesn't happen again. So we apologize for the inconvenience for those who are watching remotely.
okay, and so for those who are watching and now listening remotely, we did have a technical problem, but we're back.
We're back.
We're back. Okay, so we are now going to go to our fourth deputation that is coming in virtually, and glad we could sort this out so that we could have them here today. Jacob Hanlon and Christina Zardo, Food Cycler Science Corporation, Food Cycle Municipal Pilot Program.
Getting there.
Welcome. We'll just let you go right to it, Jacob. Okay, thank you, Jacob. We appreciate your presentation. You can actually, if you don't mind, stop sharing your screen. There, okay, great, thank you. I do have some counselors who have questions. I have seen this in action at AMO and the various trade shows. So I think it's a really interesting idea. And I'm the chair of Public Works at the district, so I'm well aware of the project going on at Georgian Bay. We have some questions here, so we'll go to those. But generally, we would let council chew on this idea and welcome to talk to, staff if they wanted to bring something forward at a later time. So I will go to Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. I absolutely love this program. I think it's great. Up here, we see a lot, if you live in town, then you have a green bin service, but if you live outside of town or live in an apartment building, I think this is a good option. My question is, if you live in an apartment and you're, a single person, can you fill it over a few days? If you might not be able to fill it per day, and does it need to be full to run? Subsequent. Is there anything that can't go in it? Great, thank you.
Councillor Johnston, I did cut you off, so if you can put your button again, that'd be great, so I can. There you go.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Jacob, I can't understate the importance of this program. I'm familiar with the program. In fact, my last municipal post in Nipissing, a number of communities used pilot programs there, and they were very successful. And the reason why I'm so pleased with this initiative is because I was getting frustrated about the progress that society was making on net 50 and net zero. We in fact were going the wrong direction. And it's this initiative, this technology, companies like yours, that give me great optimism that we're going to make it, because you correctly stated how important the landfill site is, and Mayor Lorenz spoke about this at district, and here about the methane, which, as you pointed out, is 10 times more deadly than CO2. And this is a way to address that. I like your analogy, Your Worship, that council can chew on this solution. That's what I'd like to do. Jacob, my question is, are you familiar with the plant-based treaty organization? Plant-based treaty organization? Okay, because they're in touch with me monthly, and their objectives are to do completely with food production, and different ways to produce food. So the Plant-Based Treaty Organization were adopted as part of the last COP2 conference in Dubai. They're now part of the program. It's work like theirs and work like your company that really makes me optimistic, that governments aren't going to solve the problems for all by themselves for climate. We need new technology that your company provides, and so I'm very excited, and thank you for your presentation today. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? Okay, so, well, thank you for the presentation. I think everybody's quite interested, and we'll be doing a bit of research on their own, and we will probably cross paths again sometime. Thanks for coming. Okay, great. Okay, so we are moving now to our last deputation. Daniel Siegel for Siegel Construction regarding attainable housing funding. Oh, Daniel, if you could turn your microphone on or camera on.
Camera, he's here, I can see him.
Oh, we can see you. Can you hear us? Oh, there, I think I've got you there. Great, there you go. Welcome. I'll just let you get right to it. It's been a long afternoon so far for you, I'm sure. Go ahead. Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. I think we're all enamored with that food cycler, but it's a pretty interesting project. We do appreciate your presentation. As you know, we have a two-tier system in Gravenhurst, and the housing is usually at the district level. And so while you were speaking, I sort of motion to our counselor who sits on Community Planning Services, who works in that realm. And I do think that the conversation would be better off there. We don't collect taxes in Gravenhurst for housing. Any housing taxes are paid to the district, so that's where I think the conversation should start. The town does have a role to play, of course, and we're always interested in expanding, what we can do to help. But I wonder if you have made any connections there as of yet. They have the district has a housing task force and things like that. So I'll start off with the first question. Have you been in touch with the district at all, or? We can hear you, yep. Okay, so I don't know what the resolution that you were talking about looks like. I'm certainly not prepared to pass a resolution without having some sort of feedback from, our staff or coming forward today. But I will ask council, are there any questions for Mr. Siegel? Councillor Johnston?
Thank you, Your Worship. How am I doing, Jonathan? Daniel, the comment that the mayor just made about talking to the district, she's right. She's very right. And I would encourage you to do that, because your comment about upper tier municipalities not being so much interested in this sort of concept might apply to a lot of upper tier municipalities, does not apply to District of Muskoka. And I say that with some emphasis, because two of my colleagues were at a district council meeting yesterday afternoon, and we spent about an hour talking about a very innovative housing initiative, very innovative indeed. So I would encourage you to talk to the district about that, because you'll have better opportunities there than, as the mayor pointed out, you'd have here. What you were talking about, generally in line with the discussion we had, a very spirited discussion yesterday afternoon at District Council. So I would encourage you to do that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, well, again, thank you, Daniel. We do appreciate your presentation, and if you would like to forward the resolution to the clerks. Oh, we have it. Oh, it's in the consent, oh, correspondence. Okay, so, well, I think we'll have to revisit it after your presentation today. So, thank you for coming, and stay tuned. And again, I would encourage you to reach out to the district. I think that this is more appropriate in front of them, despite your experience thus far. From our standpoint, I think that the district would be the place to start. Okay? So thanks again and have a good evening. Oh. Yikes. Okay, sorry about that, Daniel. Okay, so with that, we have wrapped up our deputations, and all very interesting. Wow, lots of information to sit on for a while. Now that brings us to the consent agenda. It is moved by Councillor Johnston, second by Councillor Jorgensen. Be it resolved that the following consent agenda items be approved: the minutes from the Municipal Heritage Committee, June 11th, 2024, the report for Building Division Appointment Bylaw, report delegated authority, award of Red Wing Drive drainage improvements. Okay. Anybody want to pull anything from that? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask for the question on the receiving those items. And that carries, thank you. Okay, so we will be moving along to new business. 2025 user fees and service charges. Report number FIN 2024-14. Okay, Ross, I'm going to read the resolution and we'll let it hang out there for a while. Be it resolved that report number FIN 2024-14, RE 2025 user fee and service charges be received for information, and that temporary delegation of authority for 2025 be given to the Director of Development Services to authorize and execute corporate lease agreements for the Wharf Pop-Up Village and for the seasonal Rotary Gull Lake Canteen facility while the pilots are still in effect and the market is being established. So, Mr. Jeffrey?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What I'd like to do is pass it on to the author of the report, Deputy Treasurer Rob Brazilius, to give some high-level comments before we open it up over to questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brazilius, take it away.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, members of council. As Director Jeffrey had mentioned, the 2025 user fee report is contained in the agenda today. A couple of high-level items. For the most part, staff is recommending that user fees be increased 3%. This recommendation is based on the fact that the 2024 levy saw an increase of 3%. The 2025 levy is expected to come in at 5%. That's what we're budgeting for. And we want to make sure that the user fees keep pace with the increase in inflation, which I know if anybody has read the news today is down around 2%. But given what's happened in the past, our user fee rates have not usually kept pace with inflation. There are, in attachment B, there are a list of items that are new fees or fees that have changed. The only one that really, there's two of them that I want to point out. The fees for the arena, where staff is recommending that the fees be increased by 10% this year. It's part of a multi-year plan to bring those rates in line with other high demand ice rentals within the district. And the third point relates to the building department. For the most part, the building department is not recommending any increases in the fees to remain the same. As you would read in the report, we have a healthy reserve, and we feel that the reserve is sufficient to accommodate any future activities. There's only two major items that were in the building user fees that were worth mentioning, is the new foundation fee that's being proposed. That's being done in an attempt to help developers build houses faster while finalizing plans that they need for the construction of the home. And then changes to outstanding permits as they progress, get older and older. We're increasing the fees as an attempt to incentivize them to get those applications closed. As part of our public notice policy, the user fees was posted on the website and on Engage Gravenhurst on August 16th, encouraging the public to review the documentation that was presented today, as well as provide feedback. As of this morning, we had only received one comment on the 2025 user fees, and that was respect to the increase of the dock slip rental. And other than that, I will open the floor to any questions that council may have.
Okay, council, are there any questions for Mr. Resilius or Mr. Jeffrey? Councillor Morphy?
Through your worship, thank you. My question is about the keeping open the building permit beyond 3 years, because we've had a bunch come to council requesting relief at times because of not being able to get the project finished and losing their $2,500 deposit. If you pay to keep it open, does that keep the deposit, to remain refundable? Does it kind of extend the 3 years and protect the deposit as well? Thank you.
Mr. Resilius?
Through your worship to Councillor Morphy, that doesn't affect the deposit. They're two separate items, really. So some building permits don't necessarily require those deposits, is my understanding. So if there are building permits that do require deposits and they go beyond the 3 years, they expire. Those deposits are forfeited to the township or town. Sorry.
Councillor Cairns, and then I see your hand, Councillor Jorgensen.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. I just wondered if you could let me know, have all the user groups been notified of the increase? So all our skating groups, our youth, everybody has been, and we didn't receive anything back from them in regards to any of the fees being increased?
Looks like Director Patterson's going to take this one.
Through you to Council Cairns. Yes, so last year when I established the 3-year increase, I emailed all of our user groups and advised them of the increase over the 3 years, and many came back and said the fees were still really acceptable. I had no negative comments back, so yes, they're all aware. And there'll be another increase again next year as part of that phased in increase to match what our comparators are doing in the area.
Councillor Jorgensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. Further on the building permit issue, it's probably a question for Director Halford, even though this is not her report, but put her on the spot, of course. In terms of building permits, I mean, when you get a building permit, is it open forever? Because I would think that there's a concern there, you know, with, especially with half-built buildings, things like that, from a safety point of view, things like that. Is there a way to limit a building permit? Do you can you put a time limit on these building permits? Because it seems to me to be a bit problematic just to keep them going forever and ever.
Director Halford?
Thank you very much, Your Worship, through you to the councillor. Several years ago, the deposit program was introduced to address that very issue, because we had a number of open permits that weren't being addressed. So the number of open permits has slowly come down now that people realize they're not only, dragging out their final product, but they're going to lose several $1,000s if they don't finish the project on time, or within a reasonable time frame. So that has reduced the number of open permits. So after those certain number of years that was just talked about, you forfeit the deposit, and then there's another fee to keep it open. So it's an attempt to financially encourage people to close their building permits.
Okay. Council? I know somebody who didn't close their final until they were ready to move. I won't say who that was. It was me. Anyway, Council, are there any other questions or comments? Okay. So, with that, I want to thank staff. I mean, nobody wants to see fees increase, but I think we do need to keep up with the rate of inflation, and I think that the users, we highly subsidize a lot of these recreation programs by keeping the facilities in such great shape. So I think it's a reasonable request. So with that, I'll ask for the vote. Oh, Councillor Johnston, did you have something? Sorry, I just saw that now.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to your point, I also think the 3% is very reasonable. But what I'm most pleased about is the comment that the user groups were all contacted. People in my background, people will much more readily and easily accept increases as long as they're given advance notice. They don't like getting a letter saying, your fees have now gone up. So the fact that you and your team did that, that's one reason why they are finding them, they are acceptable, but that doubles down the fact that they were told in advance, this is what's going to happen over the next 3 years. So I commend you and your team for that engagement. Thank you.
Okay, Council, so I'll ask you to vote on that. And that carries, thank you. Okay, moving right along to Public Dock Control Bylaw and repeal of bylaw number 2008-84, report number DEV 2024-78. The recommendation is be it resolved. It is, pardon me. Let me just do some housekeeping here. I'm going to sign this one. Okay, so be it resolved that report number DEV 2024 RE Public Dock Control Bylaw and repeal of bylaw number 2008-84 be received for information. That bylaw number 2008-84 being a bylaw to regulate the use of public dock and launch at Franklin Park Dock be repealed. That council approve the public dock control bylaw. And finally, that Schedule A of the Administrative Monetary Penalty Bylaw 2022-103 be amended and approved. It's moved by Councillor Strank, second by Councillor Varney. Director Halford, are you taking this? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I do have Manager Ford here as well to answer any questions after the presentation if there are any, but I thought I would to present this to you this afternoon. So as you'll recall, the first draft of the proposed public dock control bylaw was introduced in June, and subsequent to that meeting, and as a result of Council's resolution that asked that there be additional consultation undertaken, that was conducted over the summer months, and there was a deputation made to Council, as you'll recall, and a number of individuals and lake associations did reach out to provide their input on the bylaw. So changes have been made. You'll notice there's a number of them that have been made in the bylaw. And that is what is the bylaw based on that consultation and staff's recommendation. That's what the bylaw that before you today represents. So just as I'm sure you've all read the report, but just to summarize, public docks at our landings are meant to be just that, open and accessible for all members of the public to enjoy. And this bylaw is an attempt to balance those multiple interests that exist in the community of those that live on the lake, those that recreate on the lake, and those from outside the community that come up and get to share in the beauty and the recreational opportunities that our lakes provide. I'd also like to state that the bylaw that has been brought to you today is based on our professional recommendation, and staff would not bring a bylaw forward that did not have legal status or the ability to be enforced or cause undue risk to the town as a result of its implementation. So based on a review of the existing dock control bylaws in Muskoka and the surrounding area, as well as our professional recommendations. That's what's been included in the bylaw. And I would say that there are a number of bylaws in our adjacent municipalities that are actually more restrictive than this one. But because this is a first attempt at a community-wide bylaw, we thought we would take this approach and as a starting point and implement it accordingly, should that be the will of council. The bylaw is also not meant to be a lake-by-lake case study with different rules for different lakes. It's meant to be a one bylaw implemented on a complaint-based system. We won't be actively enforcing the bylaw, just like most of our bylaws, property standards, site plan, site alteration. These bylaws are complaint-based, so it's the similar process. We would go out if there was for example, a boat docked for a length of time, then it's blocking people's access to the public resource. So that is the summary of the bylaw. As the mayor mentioned in the resolution, the existing bylaw for the Franklin Park dock is also recommended to be repealed, and the update to the AMPS bylaw is associated with this. So this bylaw would be enforced through the AMPS program, as are a number of other bylaws in the community. So with that, I think I'll leave it there, and Manager Ford and I are here to answer any questions, should there be any.
Okay. Council? Any discussion? Councillor Jorgensen, and then Councillor Cairns.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Director Halford. Can you give us a sense of how many complaints, things like that, you've had on an ongoing basis? I mean, I'm just curious, is this, I understand that this bylaw, the purpose of the bylaw is to deal with problematic boats, if you will, things like that. And I'm just wondering if we can get a sense of how many of those there are.
Welcome, Manager Ford.
Thank you very much. Through you, Your Worship, Mayor Lorenz. Usually on an annual basis, we will receive between 10 to 20 dock complaints of boats mooring either at the docks. It usually comes in around this time of year when the docks are trying to be removed, or at the beginning of the summer when visitors are just starting to come to our docks. As well as we receive an ample amount of complaints again at this time of year with boats or vessels that have been brought up onto the municipal property, enabling the Public Works and Infrastructure team from being able to go down to the docks and remove them from their locations.
Subsequent?
Thank you. Yes, subsequent to that then. So how do you deal with those problem boats prior to this bylaw?
Again, thank you, and through you, Your Worship, Mayor Lorenz. At this time, we don't have any physical ability to enforce through a bylaw. We have been going through policies through infrastructure, which was set out that we would attend the property, we would do a brief inspection, and if the vessel didn't remove through a stop work order, then we would essentially physically chain the steering wheel so that the owner and operator wasn't able to move it. At that point, then they would have to contact the town offices to speak with our infrastructure manager.
Okay. Counselor Cairns? Sorry, I turned myself off. I turned you off. There you go. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, and through you. We did all receive several letters of correspondence from property owners that live on the lake who only have access by the Hewitt Street docks to their property as they are water access only. They've just asked for a consideration to have a further dialogue with staff so I'm asking that we take the time to listen to them about their concerns. I think I received about 14 letters, and there's 44 properties that are water access on Gull Lake and Silver Lake. So they're just asking that we consider the unique situation that is on Gull and Silver Lakes, as they have no marinas, no similar commercial services where our water access property owners can rent a slip on a seasonal basis. Based on that, they're afraid that if this bylaw is implemented and there is a complaint, then they may come back either their boat has been removed or tagged or locked, and they wouldn't be able to access their property for whatever reason. So they just had asked for that consideration, and so I am asking the same, is that we just pull the portion for Gull and Silver Lakes as part of this motion. And I do have a motion that I've worked on.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to have the conversation about the bylaw as a whole prior to talking about one section. So, because then we're shutting down the conversation going forward. So your point, I know you have the motion, and but we will get to the motion. However, I would like to deal with I would like to talk about the bylaw as a whole prior to targeting that section. There's lots of time to come back to that. There was a question, there wasn't a question there, but it makes me want to ask a question. Is bylaw interested in going and tagging boats at landings that, because my interpretation of this is to solve a certain problem. We hear this all the time. What is the problem that we are trying to solve? Do you anticipate that this 10 or 20 complaints that you receive a year will go up as a result of this bylaw, Manager Ford? Or do you expect it to stay the same, but it actually gives you some teeth to do something with the problems?
Through you, Mayor Lorenz. That's correct. Currently, as I said previously, the only options that we've had is to attend the site, do an investigation, and chain the vehicle or the vessel. We are unable to lay any type of charges, even a Part 1 or anything like that. So it's really not a useful tool for our officers or for the town at this point. It's actually quite aggravating to the vessel owners. This way we open the door for more conversation. Our process is that we do go down, we will post an order for removal. We encourage the vessel owner to contact us. We would then work with the owner. And again, this is only based on if we receive a complaint.
Okay, so I'm going to go over to Michelle, sorry, Counselor Robinson. And again, Counselor Cairns, we will revisit that, but I do think we need some questions answered prior to putting another motion on the table. Okay, so Counselor Robinson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is about North Morrison Landing. I know that we've talked a little bit about it, but I know there's a deed in place since 1963. So I wanted to check on the parking and the docking and how this bylaw would affect that.
I think the Director of Infrastructure is going to take this one, so Director Stacy?
Truly a team approach today, Your Worship. But thank you for allowing me to have a few words. The specific to the North Morrison Cottage Association, they have been in contact with us as well. As everybody will know, there is an existing 1963 agreement in place that actually the only cottage association that I'm aware of in Gravenhurst that has actually deeded parking by virtue of development rights of an island. And this bylaw is not intended to offend those privileges. In fact, this bylaw is intended to impact everybody else who aren't party to that 1963 agreement. So we will continue on. Today on the docket, there's an expansion at the landing, which has been planned since 2017. During those initial discussions, there was always talks about putting a permitting system in place so that it's clear that there's people there who are using these spots that are supposed to be using these spots and are allowed to use these spots. And should that not occur, then bylaw will come in and enforce the bylaw. But this bylaw is not intended to police the people who have those 1963 parking privileges today.
So it's business as usual at Morrison. Okay, great. Counselor Varney?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. To bylaw, I guess my question is what the complaints are, the most general complaints are they boats that have been left, like, do you say, okay, the boat's been left for 2 days, or has the boat been left for 10 days, or like what sort of complaints are people bringing to you?
We receive a variety of different calls. Yes, mooring for in excess of 6 hours. So currently down at the wharf bylaw speaks specifically to a 6-hour permitted time limit. So based on that bylaw, people will often refer to it since we don't have one for public docks. So they'll contact bylaw department and say, there's a dock down or there's a boat down at Gull Lake Park or Hewitt Street Landing. That's in excess of 6 hours. At this point, we can't do anything about that, but those are the complaints that they are in excess mooring. Or we have a lot of conversations and a lot of complaints about people bringing their boats up onto the municipal shoreline and essentially just abandoning them at the end of the year.
Can I have subsequent?
Follow up?
Thank you. Because at one deputation, there was a suggestion of being allowed to leave your boat for 10 hours. And I'm looking at this and thinking, okay, somebody on Silver Lake who is then going to go to Toronto and visit family, obviously their boat's going to be there for 2 days. Is there not, and maybe we discussed this at the last council meeting, but is there not some way that they could come to the town and explain that they're going to leave their boat there for 2 days so that you're not called about, and then something put on their boat so that you're not called saying this boat has not been moved for 2 days, so that there's an understanding, so that you don't have these calls all the time? Have you discussed anything like that for, especially I'm referring to Pine or to Gull and Silver, yeah.
So we get those calls with regards to parking offenses as well, or parking lots, municipal parking lots. And it's left up to the discretion of the manager or the officer in charge that day. Whatever the case by case may be, we'll take the constituents' concerns, we'll weigh them out, and we'll see if there's an ability for some leniency there.
Okay. I'm going to go to Councillor Johnston because he hasn't had the opportunity.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you. First, let me say that I wholeheartedly agree in principle with the need for the bylaw. These are public docks, and I don't think that a small, very small minority of people should be allowed to use those public docks to the detriment of the public. I will speak at the appropriate time, Your Worship, on the requests that Councillor Cairns brought up. But my question is sort of related to what Councillor Varney just said to Director Halford or Manager Ford. Under general prohibitions in the bylaw, it says, unless otherwise permitted in this bylaw, no person shall use, et cetera, to a dock, moor, or anchor a boat in excess of 6 hours without a valid permit. What does that mean? So to your question, Councillor Varney, does that mean that someone could apply for a permit, whether it's a time-sensitive period of time for this weekend or whatever, or for the summer? In the next section, D, as well, it also refers to a valid permit being issued by the town. So how does that work, Manager Ford?
That's correct. So there are, again, for instance, down at the wharf, there is a permitted section down there for trailers, for boat trailers, that infrastructure does provide for permits. This is also an opportunity that we may be increasing the landings and some of the docking areas to include permits. We're still currently looking at that potential, and I'll let Director Halford speak to it a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship, for the supplemental comments I just wanted to make. So yeah, Manager Ford is correct. We want to be able to make sure, we wanted to future-proof the bylaw a little bit to make sure we don't have to come back. But again, as Director Stacey just mentioned, there is one lake in particular that is going to have permits, so that would allow it to not be subject to this bylaw. And as we go forward, there is that opportunity to consider permits depending on the nature of the enforcement and the infractions to the bylaw that we're seeing, and whether there is a cost-benefit analysis that makes sense for council to then consider, and we would bring that forward at the time.
Okay, I'm going to go back to, oh, did you have a subsequent? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I mean this with some facetiousness and with all respect, but I think perhaps, the political mindset sometimes invades the mind of our wonderful professional staff, because I didn't quite understand your answer there, Director Halford. My question is very simple. 2.1 and C and D says without a valid permit. So my question was, are there cases where the town could look at a situation either for a time sensitive, for this weekend, or for a season? And let's be clear, we're particularly talking about one lake or two lakes. It says without a valid permit, so that assumes that there's a permit that could be issued. Is that the case? Thank you.
Director?
Yeah, so there's not a current, other than at the wharf, which is administered through the Infrastructure Department, and the future North Morrison Lake effort, which there will be permits for there. There's not a wider permitting program proposed as part of this program at this time. However, by including it in there, it addresses the North Morrison Lake situation, but it also future-proofs the bylaw so that if we were to come forward with a permitting process in the future, we could then do that. We're not anticipating doing that currently. We want to wait and see what the nature of the complaints that we're getting, how we're able to deal with it on a case-by-case basis with officer discretion. And the intent here is to solve some issues that are happening, not to create more administration and that type of thing, not to create more of that. It's to reduce and to increase the accessibility for those that live on the lake, increase their accessibility so that there aren't boats clogging up the launches, and for those who want to recreate on the lake so that they have the ability to launch and unlaunch. I don't know what the reverse of launch is. Take out their boats. So that's the intent. Okay, does that answer? Sorry if I was.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Councillor Cairns and then Councillor Jorgensen.
Thank you again through you, Your Worship. I just have some serious concern in regards to, so if they do get a complaint, say it's at Hewitt Street, then that means there's, and bylaw goes, and they're going to have to initiate, they can't just give one penalty, they're going to have to penalize a lot of them. Or if they don't know how long they've been there, if it's under the 6 hours, they're going to have to, staff will then have to come back 6 hours later or just to see if they're still there, and then maybe the next day if they're still there. I have some concerns, and I think that we wanted to do the bylaw. I think it was mainly for the derelict boats that are left on the shoreline, and this is the way that we can clean it up, and I fully agree with that. But I definitely think that we have a little bit more work to do on this, so I will wait till later to speak more. Thank you.
Councillor Jorgensen.
Thank you, Worship. You know, this is it's a complex issue, of course, because we're trying to balance the needs of waterfront residents and our local residents and people, other people who bring a boat and want to dock, and it's a limited resource. I'm just curious, following up on the North Morrison situation, is there docking included in the deeded or just the parking space? I was under the impression it was just parking, right?
Through your worship to Councillor Jorgensen, the 1963 agreement references both docking and parking.
Okay, so we have reserved slips in that location only.
We haven't reserved them per se, but we have put more docks in there than at any other launch that we have in town. And yeah, it hasn't really been an issue since we've added the additional docks, to be quite frank.
Right. Thank you. So, the problem we have here is that the town really is not generally in the business of providing permanent docking for any of the waterfront residents. And, I've heard that Gull and Silver is unique, but it's not, because Riley Lake out near me is exactly the same situation, where the water access people, they do leave boats during the week and come back to the cottage to get on their boat and go, and it hasn't seemed to be a problem there. And we did have quite a discussion with some of the Riley Lake people and assure them that nothing really is going to change in their instance, that it's a system that seems to be working well. I know the concern, though, and the concern in Gull and Silver and the concern at Riley Lake was the same, that, but by leaving our dock there, we're not really following the rules that are outlined in the bylaw. So I am curious, are we actively looking into some, a low administration permit system? I'm thinking, when you go down to Toronto and you just bring up your phone app and you get a parking permit for a period of time. I'm wondering if we are actively looking into something that would ease the minds of those people who do leave their boats there, because it's a finite resource, but I think there are a number of people who look at it that, yes, I leave my boat there and I don't want to come up on the weekend and find that it's somewhere else for whatever reason. Again, though, that being said, we all know people who spend a lot of money to rent boat slips and parking spaces elsewhere, and I'm torn between, the town doesn't provide boat slips for water access people. That is your responsibility. And in fact, a question, if I may, then to Director Halford. I know that when we create a new lot, the owner has to demonstrate that they have docking and parking. Do we ever follow up on that, or how do we manage that to make sure that it is in fact happening and not creating more of a problem, I guess? Because there's all kinds of, specifically Lake Muskoka, there's a huge number, and of course they do have marinas where they can do this, but there's a large number of water access people for which the town provides nothing into the way of docking. So how do we balance that is my dilemma.
Director Halford?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to the councillor. So there's only certain times where we have the authority to require that, right? So at the planning stage, at the law creation stage, we have that authority to implement a condition that they have those letters from a marina or mainland parking in perpetuity. So the property owner is made aware at that time that they have to provide their own access. And then once the lot creation is final and we've provided those matters, it's the same as every other condition. Same with your well has to be certain distance from the road. We don't go in and make sure that people don't put in a new well closer to the road, for example. So these are types of things that we're operating in good faith, and we hope that the property owners operate in good faith and recognize that this approach is underlying the fact that we are not providing you with long-term water access to your property. We can't possibly do that. We don't have enough resources for that. So in terms of follow-up, yeah, it's the applicant is made aware and they provide us with the supporting documentation, and then just like every other condition, it's left to the property owner to continue to operate in good faith. Licensing. Oh, sorry. So there's a lot more back end to those parking apps than you would anticipate. I was just in the States. I've never been before, and I was just there. And all the towns have a lot of these types of programs. And I happened to chat with a couple people, and it takes a kind of like a small army to administer those, particularly based on the number of lots that they have in that. So there is definitely, we have talked about internally what a permitting system might look like and how we might do that and what resources we might need. So I mean, the budget stage is a time where that could be considered. But before we go down that road, we are going from no bylaw to having a bylaw. So we wanted to see what the uptake would be, what the nature of the complaints are, the nature. It may be that it's not necessarily warranted. It may be that it is. So we've talked about it and looked into various models, high level, but would require resources most likely in order to make it work effectively and smoothly. And it's not currently in our work plan for that component of it.
Okay. So we know that Councillor Cairns has something she's going to put on the table. If there's no other comments, I'm going to give mine on the general bylaw. I think this is a problem that has gone from a splinter to an amputation. I don't think that this was intended to be I think this was created to solve the problems that some of these landings are facing. And let's face it, it's the people that are using these landings to get to and from their cottage that are not happy with their one cottage neighbor who's leaving their boat all week that's blocking access for everyone else. That's the problem we're trying to solve here. We're not looking to go and penalize people who are spending a little bit of time going to the grocery store and coming into the farmer's market and doing all those things. We don't have the resources. Sure, we have a 6-hour time limit, but as Councillor Cairns said, we don't have people standing there with a stopwatch. So nobody's going to come back on their first testing of the water and find their boat is not there. What's going to happen is they're going to find out, they're going to have a note on their boat that says, hey, can you call us? I mean, I don't think that there is going to be the extreme boat towing and that's being created. I think that's not the plan. I don't think that's part of the plan. I think the plan is to stop people who are blocking other people's use. We're not trying to change the way everybody uses the landings. We're trying to change the behavior of the handful of people who are taking advantage of not having a rule right now. So that's my thought. The suggestion from staff is to, let's give it a go. We can revisit it. All of our bylaws can be amended at any time. Let's see if next year we have, I mean, if we have 60 complaints and we have to hire a new person to, maintain this bylaw, yeah, we've made a mistake. But if it's still 10 tickets or 20 or 10 to 20 complaints, we've done the right thing. And the people who are are breaking the rules are being held accountable. The rule is working. So from my point of view, I would like to see it roll out and see if it works. If it doesn't, we're going to find out pretty quickly if somebody's boat has been taken away. And I would suspect that the manager of bylaw, that's the last thing she wants to see happen here. We're very open to conversations. Boats are not going to go missing, but we will put, Councillor Cairns does, I believe, have a motion and a seconder. And so I would ask if that gets tabled, unless I see Councillor Jorgensen has put his light on, and so is Councillor Varney. Unless you have something, if we want to talk about Councillor Cairns' motion or amendment, then I think now is the time for that. Is that what you would like to speak to, is the amendment?
No, I'd like to speak to bylaw again.
Okay, so you have another question? Yes. Okay, great. Okay, so, but I do not want to get away from Councillor Cairns. You will have the opportunity, but I just want to have the conversation and all the questions answered before yours comes up. So, Councillor Varney.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Okay, back to bylaw. On Silver at Hewitt Street, we were told that there are boats that have, it's like they're floating gardens. And if these boats were removed, then maybe there would be more space for some of these people who are complaining that they don't have a place to dock. I mean, is that a job that the town should be undertaking, to remove these boats that have been there for so long that, that they're, as I say, a floating garden? Isn't that something then, or is that something that the councillor for that ward has to then go to infrastructure and say, get the men down there to remove those boats? Thank you.
I'm going to go to Director Halford, because I think you just hit the nail on the head.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The point of this bylaw is to get those boats that have been there. If there are these, there's been an assertion of these floating gardens. I don't know what those are, but if there is you mean a dock that's just sitting there and, is growing moss. Yeah, okay. Then, yes, absolutely. That's the entire, part of the entire, the intent of the bylaw is to give us the authority to reach out to that boat owner, say it's in contravention of our bylaw, and please remove it, and then pursue enforcement if it's not removed. So that's the one of the main intents of this bylaw, is to do that, which will then, it sounds like, based on what you just said, address some of that wider concerns of those using the Hewitt Street landing.
Councillor Varney, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Jorgensen.
Okay, but thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I don't think people even know who those boats belong to. I think they've been there for so long. They are, why aren't they just being removed? Because they've been there for so many years, obviously, because they're growing.
There's nothing there. There's no bylaw.
So
No, I
we haven't
understand.
had sorry, you pointed to me, Your Worship. So we haven't had a bylaw to do anything with
Okay,
it, right? So
gotcha.
now we need a bylaw to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Jorgensen, I'd like to put Councillor Cairns' motion on the table, unless this is going to sway one way or the other, but I would like to address the amendment. Is that okay? Okay, great. So I understand that you have a seconder, and you have the motion, okay? So it's moved by Councillor Karen, second by Councillor Varney, whereas the Gull and Silver Lakes Resident Association provided a deputation to council on August 13th, 2024, expressing concerns regarding the impact of a proposed public dock bylaw on its water access members. And whereas in further correspondence from representatives of the Gull and Silver Lake Residents Association, the association has requested dialogue with administration in hopes of finding a solution that is mutually agreeable. Therefore, be it resolved that the Hewitt Street dock be excluded from the general prohibitions within the proposed bylaw until dialogue and options have been explored. And finally, that administration report back with the results of the dialogue, including amendments as applicable. Now, I am going to ask staff, you received you received correspondence and it has been reviewed. Is that the case?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Yes, so we received a number of comments from the public, and we heard the deputation, the same as council here heard as well, and made amendments to the bylaw that was on the table at the last. So when that deputation was made, the bylaw has subsequently been changed. Not all of the comments have been completely addressed, but there are improvements to the bylaw based on our recommendations that have been made as a result of the public consultation. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Councillor Cairns?
I am just following up with a concern of the Gull and Silver Lake Association. Their request, the letters that we did receive in regards to the docking, the new bylaw, they too feel that, getting rid of the derelict boats is a good thing, and that's not what they're asking. That's not what they're talking about in asking to speak a little bit further with staff. I know there's been a couple of little changes, but I was just hoping that because they've asked us, that we give them the courtesy to have that short conversation and then bring it back forward to council at our next meeting.
Councillor Varney, did you want to speak to this as a seconder?
I believe Councillor Cairns has said it all. Thank you.
Okay, so actually, Councillor Johnston, I've got Councillor Strength's name. She got to her button before you did. So, yeah. Councillor Strength.
So
And we're talking to the amendment.
Correct. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have just clarified that there's nothing here yet. There's nothing established. Manager Ford has no place to start. So she needs a starting place to go forward. I don't think that we should be separating or segregating different lake associations before we have a chance to go forward and see if this process or if this bylaw actually works. So I don't support segregating Gull Lake and Silver Lake. And, the 10 to 20 complaints are across the town of Gravenhurst, as I understand. So it's not specific to Hewitt Street. It's not specific to Glen Echo. It's not specific to Franklin Park. No, it's for the town of, this bylaw is for the town of Gravenhurst. And I think it's excellent because it gives everybody a place to start. So I'm not supporting an amendment. I think we should pass the bylaw and talk about it next year.
Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Let's be clear from my standpoint. I said the bylaw is necessary. I agree with the bylaw. Secondly, we're not suggesting that we not start the bylaw. That what's being proposed here is to pull the one lake out And I would ask that the mover and seconder of the resolution amend it further, because what it should say in there, because I've had some discussions with the association this morning, we're talking about a 30-day. It says an extension. It's for 30 days. And they also assured me that if the discussions with staff and ultimately then with council does not result in any changes to the bylaw, they've assured me they will accept the bylaw as written. That's what they told me very strongly this morning. So we're not making different rules for Gull Lake and Silver Lake. They simply want a pause for 30 days. And then to see if they can have some of their concerns addressed. And I think that's very reasonable. Only 30 days, and they've assured me that they will not ask for another extension, and they will not oppose the bylaw if they were given that opportunity to have some amicable discussions with administration and staff, who in the past have always been willing and always been able to talk to groups who have problems with a bylaw or with an issue, and make improvements to the bylaw or the rules to satisfy that group. So that's why I'm going to support the resolution, but I would like it amended so that it's clear we're talking about a temporary pause only for that lake, those two lakes, for 30 days. That's it. That's all I'm prepared to adopt.
Councillor Hunter?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I guess my concern is if we pull it out, I understand that you're saying only for 30 days, but the issue largely surrounds that lake. And I see this as a tool to help. When I read through the report, it is complaint-driven, it's not enforcement-driven. They'll be given ample warning. Like, I do understand the fears and concerns of people that live on that lake. But to the mayor's point, I do think that this gives a framework, but it can be amended. If it's not working, there is option in the future to add in permitting if we feel that that's a road we want to go down. I do feel for the people because I think that they have fears, but when I read through the bylaw, they'll have ample warning and notices, and it's to help them. So I can't support the amendment because I do feel that this is to help them, and that I can't see it being the problem that they are afraid of.
Okay, Councillor Jorgensen, and then I do see Councillor Morphy has put her light on, but I've already brushed you off once, so I'll let you have a go, and then we'll go back to Councillor Morphy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I mean, the mechanics of doing this, I think we're talking about Gull Lake, but I think it's really Hewitt Street. So it would have to amend Schedule A to remove Hewitt Street, I think, is the mechanics if this were to go forward. But that being said, I would like to hear from staff again, and this was actually my previous question, but it applies to this amendment as well. The concerns of people, the biggest concern that we have heard, I think, is what is going to happen when there is a complaint. And could you, just outline for us exactly what would happen? And it could be a complaint about a boat with plants growing in it, or it could be, what we see all the time is a neighbor dispute where, well, I found that guy has been there more than 6 hours, and I'm gonna put in a complaint. So could you just highlight for us what the process of dealing with complaints would be?
Okay, Manager Ford.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lorenz. Each complaint is different. We would never specifically speak to complaints and the process in which we take them as a whole normally. But in this circumstance, to satisfy your question, the norm for a complaint coming in is if somebody has a concern, we direct them to the website. We request that they fill in the online complaint form. Then we associate that complaint with a fellow officer. The officer will go out, they will do an investigation. At that point, the information comes back to the office, and it's at our discretion as to how we move forward. If there's sufficient evidence to move forward in this process, then we would go down, we would put the order to comply on the boat, we would wait for contact. Again, every circumstance is different, so I don't want to set something out there in stone that this is exactly how it would play out. This is hypothetically the norm for the way that we receive complaints and deal with them.
Can I just ask you a question? What are the chances of somebody puts a complaint in that somebody's boat has been there for 6 hours, that you go there within 6 hours? Like, it's probably a day or maybe even longer before you would even get there, wouldn't you? I mean, you guys are pretty busy. So, I mean, the boat would have had to have been there longer than, like, nobody's going right at 6:03, 6 hours and 3 minutes, and you're dealing with that boat. That's I mean, that's a fantasy, isn't it?
Just like any other, we have multiple bylaws that we look after throughout the summer: docking, parking, property standards, community standards, zoning. Our days are very, very busy. So unless it's an emergent situation that we're dealing with, there is usually some time in between that we do get to that complaint. It's anywhere from 24 to 48 hours, unless, of course, it is a vehicle blocking a dock, or a vessel blocking a dock, or a vehicle parking an emergent space that needs to be used immediately.
Okay, thank you for that. And Councillor Morphy? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to supplement, if I may, Your Worship, just that the reason for a time limit is we have to put a time limit in the bylaw because there has to be a rule that has been broken, correct? Like in order to enforce it. So we based the time, the 6 hours, on the wharf bylaw, which is already a 6 hour, so it's consistency. And we looked at other municipalities, and this one is actually more lenient than Bracebridge's is 4 generally. So it's even, there was some thought put into the 6 hours, and I know she said 24 to 48 hours to go out, but we had to have a number in there, and in an emergent situation, that seemed appropriate.
Councillor Morphy?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I'm in full support of bylaw. Let's get that out there. And we're dealing with this one issue, and we've heard from a lot of concerned and really level-headed people. As for them, this is happening in the middle of the season. They've got another month or so till Thanksgiving. And they don't want to break the law. So they are asking for a 30-day exemption from enforcement. Then they can figure out what they're going to do in 2025. They're not going, they just want that 30 days. They want some conversation. They have some ideas about various water taxis, a motel that might rent them some space. They have, but they want that to take place in 2025. So they're just looking to get through this last month. And I don't think it's unreasonable to get them out of enforcement for 30 days. The bylaw passes if that's what council decides to do. And then they don't have to stress that their boat's there for more than 6 hours until they get the problem figured out. So that is what I'm hearing. And I think it's reasonable, and it just lasts until they have a meeting and start enforcement in 2025 in the spring of. Thank you.
Councillor Jorgensen, and then I'm going to call the question.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just quickly to comment on Councillor Morphy's comments there. I think, they're not looking for relieving enforcement. They're looking for more dialogue. That's really what the request is for. So another 30 days, to be clear, and I think that's what the motion speaks to. But the other problem I have, and it was actually my subsequent, which I got bounced on a subsequent on that, but that's okay. For Manager Ford there, if I heard you correctly, so you would put basically a notice, present something like a parking ticket, or that's what we would relate to, a ticket or something on the boat. But you have no way. How do we know whose boat it is? And what steps do you take what ability do you have to figure that out? I guess is my question.
So when an order to comply goes on the boat or an order for removal goes on the boat, we're not looking to make contact with the owner of the boat. It's the responsibility of the boat owner to contact us. Again, we give time for them to be able to reach out to us and contact us and try to make the remedial action before we have to take the enforcement action. If we have to take the enforcement action, then we're removing the boat or we're chaining it until such time as we hear from somebody. And then again, that's the discretion of the department at that point as to when we actually remove the boat from the spot that it's located.
Okay, council? Okay, well, I'm going to chime in on the amendment. I've heard from lots of people. I've heard people on Gull Lake. I've heard from people on Morrison. I've heard from people at Riley. And they all want to, fit to them model. That's not the intention of this bylaw. The bylaw is to go from one side of the community to the other side. I don't think that it is, I don't think that it's an overly onerous bylaw. I think if you're not breaking the rules and you're being respectful to your fellow ramp users and your fellow community members, I don't think this is going to be a problem for you. I think that this is a problem to target. Again, I said this already. This is a specific, is being built for a specific problem. The staff have told us that they considered the information that they were asked from the lake. They don't agree with all of the suggestions and the solutions. And in fact, some of the correspondence that I received was basically, can you build us 44 docks at the end of Hewitt Street? They want us to operate a marina there. We don't operate a marina for most landings. It's what is happening is working there right now. This is just a tool to penalize the people who are not playing fairly, like all bylaws. All bylaws are created for that one or two or three people that aren't following the rules, not to penalize everybody else. So I think we, again, like I said, we're taking a mallet to a fly here. I just think that the problem that we want to solve is being solved by this and is actually to benefit the people who are using the launches and to penalize the ones who aren't using them appropriately. So I think the rules should apply across the board. I think if Gull and Silver Lakes want to ask for, something different as far as arrangements, and we've heard from the manager or the director of the department that, permit systems are not where they want to go. But I think we should see how this plays out. We've got a season. I mean, we revisit things all the time. Let's give this a go. And if it's not a problem, let's not spend hours and hours and hours of time and administration and effort to build something we don't have to build. So that's my thoughts on it. So I don't support the per site amendment. And with that, I am going to call for a vote on the amendment. I missed it. So the amendment carried. Okay. All right, so now we'll call on the, unless there's any further comments, we'll call on the.
So I'm just going to put it on the screen. So I've just added the public bylaw as amended, because the bylaw will be, take that new direction in it. Make sense? Do you want me to put it up?
Yeah, sorry.
So you see how it says as amended
Okay,
on the second line?
all right. So I'll call the question on the bylaw. And that carries, thank you. Yeah, you know what? Usually when the clerk wants a recess, I say, yeah, let's have a recess. So we'll take 10 minutes. 9 minutes, 5:45. Okay, council, I'd like to get back at it, please. You might as well stay. There's more fun to come. Okay. So, welcome back. Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Karen, second by Councillor Hunter. Be it resolved that report number DV 2024-79, RE sign bylaw exemption, Fairfield by Marriott, be received for information, and that committee approve the sign bylaw exemption request, Fairfield by Marriott, as detailed in this report. Director Halford.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I think the report is very straightforward, and you'll recall the deputation from last month. So just to provide a very high-level summary, they are permitted 2 wall signs currently under the existing bylaw, and they are asking for a third that is exactly the same as the first 2, just there's a number limit. You're only allowed 2. So staff are recommending approval of the third sign, subject to all the same bylaw requirements that the first 2 were subject to. So it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. Council? Like the director said, pretty straightforward. I wanted to say, I know we sometimes say, well, we could have done that then, but I think it's important that we also gave the opportunity for the public to weigh in on that. So that's another reason why I like to have some time between delegations and decisions, because it's sort of a way of a notice of motion. So they came, they asked, it gave the opportunity for staff to make a recommendation, but it also gave the opportunity to the public to say whether or not they agree or disagree with the ask. So with that, Councillor Jorgensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I have no problem with this at all, and support it. I'm just curious in terms of process here, because what happened and what we had heard is they submitted, drawings and whatnot for a building permit, and for whatever reason found out at this stage that they weren't in compliance with the sign bylaw. So is there a process that we could improve in terms of, a checklist, something like that, so that people aren't kind of surprised that they're not in compliance with the sign bylaw when it comes to that time?
Director Halford.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Absolutely. We have streamlined and made some efficiencies to our program, internal review program, and we hope that this kind of omission does not happen again. Yeah, we've added it to our internal checklist to look at. Functionally, the same person that used to issue sign permits and review building permits was the same person in the past. It's not anymore, so we have to tighten that process up. So it's an internal working of the department thing that we are streamlining.
Great. Okay. So I'll ask the question. And that carries. Thank you. Thanks for getting that turned around so quickly. I'm just reminding Councillor Robinson that she's declared a pecuniary interest on this next item, so we'll just give her a minute to excuse herself. It is moved by Councillor Johnston, second by Councillor Jorgensen. Be it resolved that report number INF 2024-13, North Morrison Landing parking lot expansion be received for information. That tender RFT 2024 INF 16 for the Morrison Landing parking lot expansion be awarded to the lowest compliant bidder, Advanced Excavating and General Contracting Limited, at the tendered price of $275,751.07, excluding HST. And finally, that the Director of Infrastructure Services be authorized to sign and enter the construction contract. Director Stacey?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll keep my discussion on this report brief. The report generally speaks for itself, but this is the next evolution following council's endorsement of a preferred solution for expanding the North Morrison Landing parking lot. It's been a project that I've been intimately involved with now for close to 7 years, so I'm glad to see it progress. Advanced Excavating and General Contracting Limited, although the town hasn't had the privilege of working with this particular company, our contract administrators have done their due diligence and confirmed that they have the capacity to do the job. Pending council's direction today, we'll be issuing a start work order tomorrow, which will then be to start the planning stages so that we can inform the cottage associations on what they can and cannot expect during the construction phase. But at the end of the day, we do have the money in the capital budget to complete this project, and we're hopeful that it can be fully completed by October 25th. Thank you.
Okay, council, are there any questions for Director Stacey? Okay, seeing none. Oh, Councillor Cairns.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Just a quick conversation in regards to those who have the deeded access, and I was just recognized with the people in the audience there that it goes back to, I think it was dated 2007, and I was chair of the committee at that time. But anyways, I just wanted to make sure that those deeded access properties will not be affected. And I think, I know this doesn't have anything to do with the construction of the project or the project, but I know there's some concerns. So they just wanted to have clarification that will these boat slip or this new docking be able to facilitate some of those people who have the deeded access to the slips and the parking?
Director Stacey.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Cairns, the whole reason we're doing this project is because the Mile Island residents brought it to us, a councillor in 2017. And the intent at that time, to your point, Councillor Cairns, is to protect the deeded parking that's there and to put provisions in place so that it's clearer of who can park where in that particular landing. So the docks that have been installed, there's no more docking to be installed. We've actually rolled that out earlier as we worked through the EA process, recognizing there is a bit of a bottleneck, if you will, or there was a bottleneck at the time with docking rights at that launch. But since we put in those additional docking, I'm pleased to report that the complaints that my department receives, at least in regards to this, have gone down a bit, and this project should seal the deal, if you will, and ensure that those deeded access those people have those deeded access for in perpetuity.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? I'm gonna give Michelle. Oh. Okay, and that carries, thank you. Okay, so moving along to updates from council. Councillor Strength and I had the opportunity, and our CAO, Mr. Lucas, joined us. He had to listen to a lot of chicks on the way in the car, sing along. No, I'm just teasing. We will go to Councillor Strength for her Association of Municipalities of Ontario Conference summary. Take it away.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, this was quite an experience for me because I've never been to a conference of such magnitude before. So I was quite overwhelmed by what we got to do. And I would like to thank Mayor Lorenz because she afforded us, she got lots of interesting invitations and afforded us some tremendous experiences. So I wrote everything down so I wouldn't forget, and hopefully I'm on time. We arrived on Sunday afternoon to a guided tour of the Parliament buildings by MP Scott Aitchison. We toured the West Block, which is now where all of the action takes place, while Centre Block is undergoing the renovations, and it is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. If you get a chance to go, if you're in Ottawa, you should go for a tour because the changes there are tremendous. We attended, Mayor Lorenz and I attended a Tourism Ottawa welcome event in the Byward Market. And we chatted with counselors from Halton Hills, Peel Region, and we even met a gentleman who was there with some sort of a water company, and he happened to be from Mortimer's Point in Bala. Monday morning, we heard Andrew Coyne speak. He is the former national editor of Maclean's magazine and a political journalist. He was very interesting. He spoke about living in an age of anxiety where debate and decision-making is under attack. To have effective democracy, we need a population that agrees on basic facts about the world, but people have opted out of facts. We attended a presentation by Ontario Stone, Sand and Gravel Association. I didn't know there was such a thing. Explaining how important aggregate pits are to our economy and our environment. Monday afternoon was filled with ministers and political leaders speaking. Some of the likes of Marit Stiles, the Honourable Sean Fraser, Bonnie Crombie, Mike Schreiner, an interesting set of people. We listened to Partnering for Impact Public College Municipal Innovations, which was a presentation given by Marquetta Evans, who's the president and CEO of Colleges of Ontario. She pointed out the innovative partnership that's been created with the District of Muskoka in her presentation, and used us as an example with our partnership with Georgian College. And it was nice to have someone of that caliber recognize an important initiative that we've agreed to with Georgian College. Monday evening was spent fireside with Minister Lecce, who is the Minister of Energy and Electrification. He was interviewed by the CEO of the Bruce Nuclear Power Plant. It was an interesting discussion on nuclear renewable energy, and there was lots of industry people there and lots of other ministers there supporting Minister Lecce in his fireside chat, which was held at a company called iPolitics, which is an up-and-coming line of news and community event source providing. They're a lovely bunch of young people with fresh new ideas on how to deliver all types of news, not just political, but community as well. They have their office in Ottawa in the Byward Market, and they're about to launch, if they haven't already, in Barrie. And they said several times that they're not just talking about politics, they're talking about community. So in an age where we've lost our newspaper and our print vehicle, this is a fantastic idea. Tuesday morning, we headed to Ending Homelessness, Acting Locally with Impact. There were some interesting takeaways from there. Landlord and Tenant Act needs some tune-ups, and other suggestions were converting existing units into co-ops and providing tax exemptions as incentives. And then Tuesday afternoon, we experienced, well, for me, for the first time, the Bear Pit, where all the ministers field questions from mayors, councillors, and municipal staff members. And that was quite an exciting thing to witness. We had heard topics from different municipal people of different calibers about housing, homelessness, education, conflict of interest, code of conduct issues, which was fascinating. And then Tuesday night, we had a fun dinner out with all of the attendees from Muskoka. So we were with Muskoka Lakes, Huntsville, Bracebridge, Georgian Bay, and we had a fun evening, and there was lots of laughs. And we hopped in the car on Wednesday morning and came home, and I was fascinated, bewildered, and exhausted.
And lots of pens.
And lots of pens, that's right. And I think it's a tremendous, well, I don't know if it was a different year this year because it was the 125th AMO. It was just really quite an experience, and I'm grateful for every minute.
Yes, it was very interesting, and we didn't sit in on the same We didn't always sit in on the same topics, but we would meet in the grand ballrooms for the big events, so it was great. And I sourced out, I haven't always done this, but I sourced out some interesting things that I knew was going on that I jumped on the invitation, and we were the envy of many for a couple of things that we did that not everybody signed up ahead, so we got lucky with that fireside chat. It was really an interesting perspective on how some of the people who run this province, interact with each other and in sort of a social setting. So it was very interesting. We did have a successful, I would say, meeting, just to touch base, just to tap on that, with the Minister of Health. And more to come about that, hopefully one of these days, but we'll save that for another time. So I will now go over to Councillor Johnston. You do have a watershed council update.
I do, Your Worship. Thank you, and through you, I just want to say to my colleague, District Strength, District Council Strength, I was going to call you Dr. Strength, that AMO was, in 30 years, AMO was always my favorite conference. And so I'm glad that for someone being there for the first time enjoyed it as much as you did. So, Your Worship, my comments are going to be brief here. My colleague went over by 7 seconds, so I'm cutting mine by 7, so you've lost nothing. No penalty, no penalty. I'm distributing through Kayla just a one-page summary of the municipal conference that's going to be held on, the environmental conference that's going to be held on October the 4th. And I just want to remind everyone that that's for general members of the public. There will be another one in October, which will be a follow-up to the one we had in February. Okay, all 13 area councils will have a meeting in October that Mayor Alcock and the district staff are arranging. So I'm addressing these next remarks to anybody that's still up there. If anybody's still listening, are you there, Dave? Because as I said, I want to make sure that the word gets out for this conference, because it's going to be fabulous. Our keynote speaker is a gentleman by the name of Blair Feltmate. Look him up tonight when you have nothing to do. He is a powerful speaker. He's currently the chair of climate action at University of Waterloo. He's also written a number of books, one of which is on aquatic ecology, which is very much the issue here. So the summit on people that want to register and attend can go online to muskokasummit.org and register. And I would encourage people to have a look at it because, as I said, we've got some fantastic speakers. For my part, I insisted, as did one of my colleagues, that there must be at least one session that will be presented by youth. High school students. So I have a group of 3, and there's another group of 3 from Bracebridge and Huntsville on one. My group is going to be doing, and I met them in Gravenhurst High School a couple of weeks ago, and they blew me away. The world is in very good hands. What they talked about in terms of what they want to do on climate, fantastic. And their presentation is called, I like this, Paving a Greener Path, Youth-Led Solutions for a Sustainable Muskoka. And the material is fantastic. So what I ask for you, and then I'll wind up here, is very simple. I just would like you to talk the conference up to your constituents, because I said we'll have one for area councils in October. This is for general members of the public. It's not going to be a technical conference or scientific. It's just going to tell them that, why we have a problem with our watershed, what the solutions are in general terms, and what those solutions, how they will impact your life, your family, and your community. So that's the theme of the conference. So just please talk it up to people. I think they'll enjoy it very, very much, and it will. Our purpose is to engage the public to get involved with us, this council, this staff, and district staff on climate action. So that's my report, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, which brings me to me. I buried it, thank you. I just have a few things. I just want to give a shout out for some community events that have happened and that are planning to happen. I want to thank fellow councillors, a number of us, Councillor Cairns, I believe Councillor Morphy, though we didn't cross paths, joined Christina and Councillor Councillor Hunter, pardon me, and Councillor Strength and myself all attended the hospice walk. So always a good cause for our friends at hospice. They do good work there, so thank you for participating in that. I understand, we have got the arts tour coming up, which is I've got my little map here, the 28th and 29th, so stay tuned for that. It was a fabulous day last year, for the first annual one last year, and so if you are around or if you are watching from afar, maybe you come to Gravenhurst for it that weekend. So hopefully the weather will be in favor. We've got some new fall programs, so watch for those and look into those and see if something catches your fancy. And this morning I had the opportunity to present to Probus, which was something interesting that I had never done before. So I enjoyed it. Communications, Mike Jennings came with me and was very helpful. So thank you for that. And lots of stuff going on. Sign up for Engage Gravenhurst and Engage Muskoka for budgets. Budgets are coming up at both levels, so if you want to participate, we are always looking for feedback. And that will wrap up my report. And so with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Cairns and Councillor Hunter. And vote on that, please. Okay. And then we will roll right into council. Okay. Oh, pardon me, because we already did the council agenda because we had the closed session. So, pardon me. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest on the council agenda today? Okay. All right. Thank you. So, is moved by Councillor Morphy, second by Councillor Robinson. Be it resolved that the council minutes from August 13th, 2024 be adopted as circulated. All in favor? Or please vote. Please vote if you are in favor. I've got to get a proper line.
So one person has not voted. Has everyone voted? There we go.
Okay. And that carries. Thank you. Is moved by Councillor Strength, second by Councillor Varney. Be it resolved that the committee of the whole minutes from August 13th, 2024 be adopted as circulated. And please vote. And that's carried. Thank you. Just getting caught up on my paperwork here. It's moved by Councillor Cairns, second by Councillor Hunter. Be it resolved that Mayor Lorenz be appointed as the council representation on the Gravenhurst Trails Committee for the 2022-2026 term of council, that the following individuals be appointed to the Gravenhurst Trails Committee for the 2022-2026 term of council: Craig Little, Eric Vanderberg, Karen Moyer, Samuel Van Wert, Tina Kilborn, and Valerie Loshaw, and that the following individual be appointed to the Municipal Heritage Committee for the balance of the 2022-2026 term of council. Oh, I have to say their name, sorry. Judy Humphreys. Okay, can we vote on that, please?
Sorry, my thing just went away.
Okay, and that carries. Thank you. It is moved by Counselor Johnston, second by Counselor Jorgensen. Be it resolved that the following bylaws be read, passed, and engrossed into the bylaw book. Bylaw number 2024-88, 2025 user fees and charges. Bylaw number 2024-89, appoint a building inspector, M. Klein. Bylaw number 2024-90, use of public docks and launches. Bylaw number 2024-91, repeal of dock control use bylaw number 2008-84. Bylaw number 2024-92, amend Schedule A, administrative monetary penalty, bylaw number 2022-103. Councillor Cairns?
Thank you, Worship. Oh, sorry. Thank you, through you. Just a quick question in regards to the dock bylaw, control bylaw. Does that recognize the motion that went forward? The amendment to the motion?
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor Lorenz, to Councillor Cairns. Yes, after Council adopted the amended motion, the bylaw was updated under Schedule A. Under Hewitt Dock, it now has in brackets temporarily excluded. It was updated. You may need to refresh your screen, but it has been included, and therefore the bylaw you are adopting or propose to adopt is a true reflection of your direction earlier this evening.
The same question, Councillor Morphy? Okay. So I'll ask everyone to vote. That carries. Thank you. Is moved by Councillor Morphy, second by Councillor Robinson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-93 to confirm the council meeting held on September 17th, 2024 be passed. Please vote. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Strength and Councillor Johnston. Well, before we adjourn, yep,
After we adjourn, I just wanted to say something very.
Oh, I will go to Councillor Johnston before we adjourn.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say something very uplifting. This was a very, very good council meeting today, and for a number of reasons. One of which is there's some great things happening in this town. We saw the Tall Pine Festival and the swim thing, and so the reason I bring that up is that, and I've talked to a number of my colleagues about this. I'm looking forward to the meeting we're going to have on Thursday, because we've got a great team around this table and out there with the staff, and we've got 2 years left. I think, you know, if we can agree on some innovative ways to coalesce together with Ms. Craig on Thursday, we can do some fantastic things the next 2 years. I was so impressed with the first two deputations and all of the things that, some of which you've mentioned, that are going on in town. And we can do so much more. This is a great group in this room. So I just wanted to say I'm looking forward to the meeting on Thursday to talk about ways that we can make our team even stronger. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Okay, so I did have Councillor Strength and Councillor Johnston to adjourn. Now please vote on adjournment.
Did it come up?
No.
No, okay, try again.
Okay.